Hello, everybody. I'm Bill Hanvey, President and CEO of the Auto Care Association, and welcome to a conversation with our Auto Care Congress member, Congresswoman Ashlee Stevens of Michigan, hosted by the Auto Care Political Action Committee, or ACPAC. During today's call, you will hear from Congresswoman Stevens and ACPAC committee member Ashlee Arnold of Arnold Oil. Ashlee has been a steadfast supporter of the Auto Care Association's advocacy program and an ambassador for our industry. She has seen firsthand how getting involved in our advocacy efforts is vital to the future of the auto care industry. These conversations are supported by ACPAC, and its supporters are an important tool in our advocacy strategy and continue to bring the story and concerns of the aftermarket to our lawmakers. Ashlee, I'll turn it over to you and the Congresswoman. Thank you both for being here and participating in this video. Ashlee?
Thank you, Bill. Congresswoman Stevens, again, thank you from all of us for taking the time out of your busy schedule to sit down with us today to talk about the importance of advocacy in our industry issues that we're facing today. For those of you viewing, Congresswoman Stevens is from Michigan's 11th district, including her hometown of Rochester Hills. She served since 2019 and currently sits on the House Committee for Education and Labor and the House Committee on Science, Space, and Technology. Before serving in Congress, Representative Stevens served as Chief of Staff to the U.S. Auto Rescue Task Force, the federal initiative responsible for saving 200,000 auto worker jobs. She also played a key role setting up the Office of Recovery for Automotive Communities and Workers and the White House Office of Manufacturing Policy. Congresswoman Stevens has been a committed ally to the aftermarket and staunchly supported our vehicle data stance. Thank you, Congresswoman, for understanding the importance of vehicle data and how it's so essential in ensuring free market when it comes to auto care, and being such an advocate overall for our industry and such a good friend of the automotive aftermarket and the Auto Care Association. Obviously, you haven't had anything to do over the last, 5 to 10 years with all of that on your plate. So let's get to know you a little bit better. What was your first car?
Oh my gosh, this is my favorite question. So thank you for asking it, Ashlee. And just thank you all at the Alliance and the awesome Bill Hanvey. I think all of you know that he is just so the best in business, and it's a real treat to be able to be with all of you, even in a virtual setting. I care so much about who all of you are, what all of you do, and I am your very eager member of Congress to spend that time with you. But to answer your question, because I know it was just a real simple one, my first car was an Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme, and I think it was a 1991 model. It was this really kind of cool color of purple. I still have the keys to that car, even though I don't own the car anymore and I don't know where it went, but I still have the original set of keys. I got it to 200,000 miles. Obviously, I bought it used, senior year of high school, had a visor hanging through the rear view mirror, and it had a tape player. So I'll never forget, I counted down when the car hit 200,000 miles, and it was so cool. Like, it was just, oh my gosh. I drove that car out to college, and I've got pictures of me like hugging it when I had to say goodbye to it, and just a real fun experience with that Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme.
That's amazing. Yeah, you never forget your first car, and you never forget the experiences that you have, the first time you get on the road in your first car by yourself, when you're not riding with mom and dad anymore. That's amazing. So do you have a dream car? And if so, what would it be?
Well, I've been driving my Ford Explorer for a little bit here, and it's been a lot of fun, but I'm hearing all about that Ford Bronco. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm interested in that. We got also an electric Hummer coming out, electric vehicle Hummer. That's been, I think it's going to be made right here in Detroit. So I'm interested in that. And then I drove Jeep too for a number of years. So I think you can tell where I'm going with this. Any big three, big car, I'm kind of into.
Yeah, absolutely. No, my dad, when I was a kid, we had a Bronco, and I'll never forget that car. It was the best. I'd get one too.
Me too. My dad had a Bronco. It was so funny. He had the white Bronco. I know I'm not supposed to go there, but I was in high school and these kids pulled us over. They were like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you're driving this car." And my dad was he owned a small business at the time, and he just like didn't even know what they were talking about. But a lot of good memories and all, and then so he drives a Ford F-150 right now and just, loves it. So I love getting in the car with my dad and cruising around too. We have a lot of fun.
Absolutely. So when it comes to automotive repair work, would you consider yourself a do-it-for-me or more a do-it-yourself type person?
I would consider myself an aspiring do-it-myself person. So every time I go to get my oil changed or I go, to one of your type of shops, I'm like always talking to the people who work there. And I'm like, okay, listen, I'm really busy, but I'd like an apprenticeship and I'd like to shadow what you do. I'd love to learn what you do. I want to inspire more people to do what you do. My stepfather does a lot of self-repair pretty successfully on cars, and we're friends with the guy at Al's who runs an auto repair shop up the street from my house. And so I'm always kind of picking their brain. But the reality is, if I tried to change a tire, I probably wouldn't be that successful at it. All right.
You may lose the tire on the road.
Yeah.
So switching gears just a little bit, what would you say has been your most memorable moment since you've been in Congress?
Oh my goodness. I'll tell you, the times when I was on the House floor with really significant members of Congress has always stuck with me from both sides of the aisle. So for instance, conversations I had with John Lewis, particularly about people from Michigan. I remember I gave an address about the passing of Mr. John Dingell, and John Lewis came up to me afterwards and said, "I really appreciate what you said about Mr. Dingell," and it totally gave me the chills. Or a colleague from the Education and Labor Committee who came over, who's a Republican, and she's real tough, and I'm a Democrat, and I don't always like to get into this whole intra-party fighting stuff, but she came over to me and it's like, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much for writing me a holiday card. We should get breakfast," and it was like such a rewarding moment. So that's something within the chamber that has been really meaningful. But also, Ashlee, what a lot of times people don't see from members of Congress is that we help with casework, case management services. And so people will call my office. We'll get veterans who call in who are looking for their paperwork, people who are dealing with a Social Security disability claim. Sometimes it gets gummed up in the paperwork and they're having a really hard time making their way through. And there's been several cases that my team has worked on that we've gotten closed. And I've been able to talk to those constituents and just see how their life has transformed through the direct federal service that we provide every single day in our office. And we were really proud to conclude last year with being able to say we put over $2 million directly back into the pocketbooks of our constituents. So one person had a $30,000 claim that we were able to help them recover. Somebody else had another type of veterans paperwork issue that they needed help with, and we got it for them. And so it's changing lives, and just the ones and twos is what I like to call it, which is also very, very rewarding.
Oh, absolutely. I can't even imagine. So another question, obviously you worked under the Obama-Biden administration when you were serving on the Automotive Task Force. What should this industry expect with now President Biden?
Yeah, and that's such a great question. One, I would say just know that the President Biden, and I'd worked in the administration under President Obama, President Biden, saw then well, I was at that time Vice President Biden, and I saw him very up close, just his passion for the industry. And what a lot of people don't know about him is that when he was a senator, he got, I think it was like a 1967, or it might have been a 1976. I might be flipping the numbers, but he got an old Corvette, and it was yellow. And he was so, it was like this whole thing he liked, was able to buy this car. He was super excited. And it was in the summer of 2008. Well, if you remember what happened in the summer of 2008, he got a phone call from then presidential candidate, Senator Barack Obama, saying, "Hey, Joe, I want you to be my vice presidential nominee." So then what happened to Joe Biden's life? Well, it completely changed. And they had the Secret Service monitoring him. And really, I don't know how much he was able to drive this car, this brand new vintage car he got. And it was kind of like, oh my gosh. And he loves, you've seen that iconic picture of him, in the classic car. And with that, though, he has such a respect for the auto care industry. So one, I would just know that this is someone who's really got an open heart for what all of you do, just a real appreciation for the workforce, the people employed, the need for the highly skilled worker, some of the technology components. And, in terms of, I'm working with some of the folks now, that have come into this administration, right? And because we have a new one in, so we're calling up the new head of the National Economic Council. Well, that's Brian Deese, who was the staff point person on the National Economic Council for the auto rescue in 2009. So you guys should all absorb that and know that his administration has a real emphasis on this industry. In the director role of the National Economic Council, the deputy director of the Office of Management and Budget also worked on manufacturing issues for President Biden when he was vice president. And I know how to get to all of them too. So I'm happy to work with all of you. But I would expect to, and I'll help you push for that, because I'd really like to see, a chance for all of you to explain, some of the issues that are going on, just give an update into the White House. I think that'll be very important going forward. And I think there'll be a lot of receptivity to some of the challenges that you all are facing.
Yeah, and you come from such a huge district that employs people from the automotive industry. Those of you who don't know, her district alone employs 30,000 people from our industry. So for you, what has it been like for you to hear from both the OE manufacturer side as well as the automotive aftermarket side? And how do you take that in and process it? What has that been like to be pulled kind of both directions at times?
Yeah, and that's a good question too, because a lot of times what people don't understand, I know all of you know this, which is that the auto industry is very wide. It's in terms of its breadth, it just extends out into many complex supply chains, oftentimes global. Lots of jobs are connected. Some folks who I work with, I swear to gosh, they kind of think like, oh, the car's just, you wave a wand, push a couple of buttons, and they don't even realize, the tier levels of the suppliers, let alone what happens in the aftermarket. But in many respects, you're going to have, if you're going to get on the phone with an OE, they're going to have like big top line considerations. And look, you're going to also rely on associations like yourself, like this association, like MEMA and OESA, MEMA OESA. Those are very important associations for juggling some of the issues that do bring about friction. And what we want to do, though, is identify the places where we can come together. So on data privacy, there's going to be sides on that, and we've seen that already. But then when we start to say, well, wait a minute, OEs, I know that some of your dealers, do some care, auto care, but not to the level of the entire aftercare market. You're also very reliant on the aftercare market. And Ashlee, we saw this when we were working on the U.S. auto rescue. Again, sometimes competing interests. stakeholders always have to come to the table. They come together around labor negotiations. And when we were doing the auto rescue in particular, you know, you saw groups that came together who oftentimes aren't always on the same page, but they were saying, oh my gosh, you know, we can't let GM and Chrysler go bankrupt. We have to have a plan for the dealers. We have to have a plan, you know, for the auto communities. We have to have a plan for the workers and good quality jobs. And so while we certainly don't want to ever see something like what led to the auto rescue happen again, I do think when issues go really far along, you can pinpoint these areas where we do have common ground and reach some places of decision. And folks, I mean, I know we're already seeing this happen at the state level, so I want to be really transparent on this. I'm very captured by some of the issues that aren't always, everyone isn't always kumbaya, same page on, but I'm very captivated by them because in part, I know that they're tied to jobs. I know that they're tied to bottom line. And frankly, they're tied directly to what is your customers and our American consumers who are really relying on a, you know, a strong aftercare market that can help them with their, you know, repair needs.
Absolutely. Sometimes it's sad that it takes times to get really tough for people to come together and say, I'm willing to give a little here if you can give a little here, and let's find a common ground. But so I know I'm trying to be respectful of your time. Just one last thing. I didn't get involved in auto care advocacy or ACPAC or anything like that, or with Congress people. You know, it was always something that was sort of taboo and made me a little nervous until I got involved within the Auto Care Association. If you had advice for somebody that wanted to get involved or how to best help advocate on behalf of the industry with their own Congress people or their senators or anybody for that matter, what would you say?
Well, one thing I would say, yeah, my advice, yeah. Well, one, take your cues from Ashlee, who's a phenomenal questioner. I want every interview to be done by Ashlee from here on out because I've had like the best time and totally opened up. But I think you guys are a really great example. You know, the association is a really great example of advocacy done right, in particular. And this is the special relationship I believe we share because you mentioned, you know, the large number of jobs that I have in my district in this space, which makes me so proud to be able to work with you every time. I mean, oh my gosh, I'll go and visit. We have, you know, the Farmington Garage is in our district, and I've done a couple of meetings with them, and every time I just leave so energized, so excited about what we're going to continue to do, trying to connect the dots. And that's also something that we can do with these areas where we've got to find some common ground or just actually reach a decision point, right? And that's the reliance on legislators. And you know, you turn on the cable news, okay, for instance, and it just makes the whole thing look like a circus. And sometimes I look at my colleagues and I think, oh my gosh, you know, how do we show the American people it's not a reality show or some constant drama, but actually the level setting of federal legislation, which is passing the nation's laws, very serious deal. How do we do so? Well, we do so by working in coordination with our stakeholders, our constituents, key collaborators, and it's really a great vehicle. I don't think we had officially started the interview yet, but Bill was sharing a great story just as we were, I guess, in the green room is what you could call it. And he was saying, oh my gosh, the last time I saw you, you know, we were in the crowded hallway. This was in the before times, before the COVID-19 pandemic hit. And we got to, you know, kind of, you know, do our meeting out there and catch up. And I'm like, yes, you know, that's the whole thing. It's like, it's accessible, it's person to person. And a lot of times, and I really wouldn't consider myself an exception, although I'm highly knowledgeable about the industry, is that the minute you start engaging your legislator, they become interested, they become enthusiastic because they see the people who are involved in your industry. They see issues that are not just stuck in the past, that are focused on the future, that are tied to our innovation needs and all these exciting things that are going on that should not be afterthoughts, right? The aftercare market is not an afterthought. It is so real to consumers. It's so real to their pocketbooks and their bottom line and our needs as a society moving forward. And I'm going to tell you what, the pressure on all of you guys is only going to increase. And this is why this advocacy component is really important, right? We're looking at electric vehicles. We're looking at autonomous vehicles. We know how many gigs are going through the cars, and with data privacy issues that have been coming up that need to continue to get unlocked. I have those conversations even with my constituents as well. And a lot of times having a vehicle directly in, no pun intended there, but a vehicle directly into a member's office is going to be the make or break on something. And that's why with Haley Stevens' office, with my office, when aftercare is calling, we're answering that call. We're taking that meeting. We're spending that time together. So the sky is really just the limit. And frankly, and I'll just lastly say, you never know what your member of Congress is working on or what's on their mind, or something of, fill in the blank that you need to provide. And that's also where advocacy can be substantive and really go a long way.
Oh, absolutely. Education's a two-way street, irregardless if I'm talking to somebody that I'm selling a part to down the street, or somebody who's driving a car, or our congressperson that is on so many committees that I don't know how you have time to sleep right now. So it's definitely a two-way street. Again, thank you so much for your time today. You've been amazing. I wish you were in my state too. Is there any closing remarks that you'd like to leave us with?
Well, I've got some good friends in Texas, in the Texas delegation. So yeah, and I've been promising a visit at one point. So we'll come see you. It'd be great because, and this is the other thing I'm going to tell all my colleagues, is this touches all of their districts. They all know that. I'll tell you, I was on the other side of Pennsylvania Avenue when GM and Chrysler were staring true liquidation in the face. We had, Toyota even come in and encourage us. They go, don't let them go through a standard liquidation. It's just going to be devastating. But the other thing that happened when we were working on that auto rescue is every member of Congress reached out. And now some of them are my colleagues. So I remind them, I say, you know how important this industry is, how important automotive is to what the future of your district looks like, to the bottom line of jobs and all the excitement and opportunity that comes along with it. So continue to be at the table with all of us, the Zoom table or whatever table we can manage to muster up, because I am really fired up and energized to know you guys, to be working alongside you. We're still at the very beginning of this new legislative session of Congress. The sky is really going to be the limit in terms of what we can achieve together, and I can't wait to do that with all of you.
Thank you so much. You've been absolutely incredible. And thank you for your support. Thank you for your continued advocacy on our behalf too. We very much appreciate you.
We're doing it.
All right. Well, thank you, Congresswoman, and thank you, Ashlee. Great job. And Congresswoman, I kid with Ashlee that she's going to be joining you on the floor at some point in her career.
Hey, call me. Call me if you make that decision. Call me.
So
yeah, that'd be great. We could really, I'll tell you, we could use more people, with the manufacturing background. And if you can stay focused on that, that's where you can really find that middle ground. You just say manufacturing, innovation, jobs, and that is how I've become one of the most bipartisan and successfully bipartisan members in the chamber, truly. So.
Well, we really appreciate your support. We have a small event in Las Vegas every year called ACPAC, and I know that you're familiar with it. It's our industry's homecoming, 160,000 people, and we weren't able to meet in person last year. We were planning on it for November. We'd love to invite you, and we'll keep your staff up to date.
Oh, that'd be great. That would be great. Yeah, please keep me updated. Yeah, fingers crossed on that. That'll be really exciting.
Yep, wonderful. And thank you again for your support. Thanks, Ashlee. Fantastic job as always. And thank you for your service, Congresswoman. Thank you. Yep.